name's Karen O'Shaughnessy, and on behalf of the Transit Working Group, it is my honor to welcome all of you to this forum. This forum is taking place on unceded territory of the Coast Salish people, and we thank them for that. I'd like to also thank the sponsors of this event, the City of Vancouver through their Homeless Action Grant, SFU, Vancity's Office of Community Engagement, Surrey Urban Mission Society, and Collingwood Neighbourhood House. So thank you, everyone. I'm not aware of any special or any of the politicians that are attending tonight's session, but I was asked to bring to everybody's attention that Deputy Mayor Andrea Reimer of the City of Vancouver has sent her regrets. So it's a busy time out there. So maybe I'm going to start this whole thing off. I also want to say thank you to our presenters from both Calgary and King County. It's wonderful that you made the trip up here. So I'm going to start off by just talking a little bit about the Transit Working Group. Peter is going to talk about the national context of transit, affordable transit for the homeless. I will come back up and spend some time talking about the Vancouver context of transit. And then Bonnie and Colleen, there you are going to come up and talk about the models that are occurring or what is occurring in Calgary, the programs that they have and the things that they're exploring. And Mark is going to be coming up. He's our cleanup batter. You didn't know that, did you? He is going to come and talk about the programs that they have in King County, which includes Seattle's area. So I guess to move us along. Yes. This is going to be relevant. The forum is actually going to be relevant for anybody who's living in extreme poverty. And that's going to impact on the working poor, people on income assistance, people who are barely making it. Okay? So, the Transit Working Group. What is the Transit Working Group? The Transit Working Group is a committee of Vancouver Urban Core Community Workers Association, which is a network of agencies in the downtown east side that are working on behalf of the people of the downtown east side. Around 1993, there was recognition that a lot of people in the downtown east side were having affordability issues and hitting those barriers. So I'm sorry, not the Transit Working Group, the Vancouver Urban Core recognized it. So they formed the Transit Working Group Committee. And in recognition that this affordability issue was not just a downtown east side phenomenon, but it was region-wide, the Transit Working Group invited representatives of many of the homeless tables that existed to join the Transit Working Group to address the issues, making it region-wide. We're also co-sponsored by the Greater Vancouver Shelter Strategy in recognition that the homeless are really hard hit by the lack of affordable housing. So the first thing the Transit Working Group did is identify barriers to housing. And we recognize that the homeless are either destitute or live on low fixed incomes, and for them, affordability was the #1 issue. And that they are, in fact, the most poverty-stricken amongst people living in poverty. And within that, we identified 2 most urgent needs. One was getting people to and from the shelters, and particularly when extreme weather puts them at risk. And the second need was that people need access to affordable transit to access the services that they need to be able to get out of homelessness or get out of the shelters. So access to health care, access to income assistance, access to jobs or training or whatever it was, and, of course, housing. So what the Transit Working Group did is put in a proposal in February 2013 to the TransLink and to the provincial government. And we had 3 goals as outlined, 3 major goals that we were looking at TransLink and the provincial government to address. One was to establish a discount bulk fare purchase program for the shelters, outreach, and homeless servicing agencies to get people to and from the shelters that I mentioned earlier. And the second thing that we wanted to do is recognizing that people were getting fined by riding the buses or the SkyTrains without paying the fare. People were getting huge fines, and so we wanted a mechanism for those fines to be able to be waived if you could prove economic hardship. And the last thing we wanted to do is we really wanted to establish a committee of key decision makers and stakeholders to develop a regional transit plan for the homeless. So we have received over the last 3 years, a huge amount of endorsements from many homeless serving agencies, from homeless tables, and from 4 municipalities. We've conducted research to confirm what we understood that the homeless were actually experiencing. And we wanted to also explore what options were available elsewhere, because Metro Vancouver cannot be, and it proved to be the case, we are not the only community that's coping with the lack of affordable transit, access to transit, hence this forum. So the outcomes, I'm really pleased to inform you that we have a planning committee that's been formed. The TransLink, the CEO of BC Housing, and Transit Police have joined the Transit Working Group to plan and come up with strategies on how we're best going to meet the needs of people who are extremely poverty-stricken. We are continuing to do research into the needs and issues and barriers that people are experiencing. And I think a big success is that the Transit Police have implemented extreme weather protocols. It may not be known to most of you, but up until this past winter, if somebody was found homeless on SkyTrain or didn't have a place to go, even if it was in extreme weather, they would be asked to leave the transit system, and they'd be out in the weather. This way, the Transit Police are actually able to join with all of the other police forces and give people who are willing to give them transit to shelters so that they don't have to cope with the weather, and it reduces health risk. So those are 3 of the really good things that have been coming out of our work. If there's interest or you want to endorse the work of the Transit Working Group, we have a table at the back. You want to kind of wave there, Wanda? That's on your way out, and would be really pleased if you join the movement towards affordable transit for the most needy. Okay, so I want to turn this over now to Peter Greenwell. Peter is a member. Actually, can we have the members of the Transit Working Group stand for a minute? Just so you know who these people are. Norman in the back. Great bunch of people. A lot of work being done by them. Thank you very much. So Peter is the coordinator of homeless programs in Collingwood Neighbourhood House. He's worked as a planner in both the City of Vancouver and for Metro Vancouver. He was the director of the Gathering Place Community Centre for very many years, and he worked there to expand both legal assistance and health services for the local residents. Peter initiated the City of Vancouver's extreme weather shelter response in the downtown southwest end, and for many years, Peter has served as the chair of the Vancouver City Planning Commission as an advisory body to Vancouver City Council. Currently, Peter is a PhD candidate in the Social Dimensions of Health program at the University of Victoria, focusing research on the transportation access and exiting homelessness, as well as the coordinator of homeless programs at Collingwood Neighbourhood House. Peter is going to be talking to us about the Canadian context. Thank you.
Hi, thanks for everyone who's here tonight. With the Transit Working Group, I mean, most of us on the committee come from a perspective that focuses on homeless and at risk of homelessness, but we know the issue is much broader than that and impacts on lots of people. And I mean, what is homelessness? Homelessness is this combination of extreme poverty and social isolation. And we know that homelessness has a direct link to mobility. And so for me, it's a very important issue in dealing with homelessness is increasing people's access to mobility. We live in a very mobile society. So I come from a social determinants of health perspective. Housing, income, food security, health services, they all contribute to the population level health. And we know through the amalgamation of research that a number of people have done, in particular Michael Marmot and Richard Wilkinson through the World Health Organization, that more equal societies are healthier. It doesn't matter how you get to that equality. It could be high taxes in Sweden in a redistributive way. It could be low taxes in Japan in a fairly flat income and wealth structure. It doesn't matter how you get there, but a more equal society is healthier, and it's healthier for all of us. It doesn't matter if you're rich or if you're poor. A rich person in Sweden lives longer than a rich person in Canada. A poor person in Sweden lives longer than a poor person in Canada. So more equal societies have a higher life expectancy, lower infant mortality rates, and lower rates of child poverty. And in terms of inequality and health impacts, it's like climate change. Climate change, in some it's human caused and it's a political decision. A lot of the work, there's been numerous studies that I could cite that really specifically sort of talk about health impacts from transit access. In Toronto, the move for transit access for people living with low incomes has really been driven mostly by the Toronto Public Health Board, working with pressuring Toronto Council and the Transit Commission. And there's, specific studies. They looked at diabetes. People that had more access to transit had better rates of diagnosis and treatment of diabetes, just as an example. So another link to homelessness in Canada is that as well as being the only G8 country that has no national housing strategy, we are also the only G8 country that has no national strategy around transit investments. And just as a a very brief example of that. What this chart is, it looks at Canadian transit investment nationally and compares us to other countries. We are the green bar. The average over all of these sort of major industrial countries is about $82 a year in transit investment. Canada comes out at $33, and the Norwegians, those damn Norwegians, they come in at $180, and I'm sure they're just saving their oil so they can sell it to somebody else. So transit planning in Canada, really, it falls down to regions to deal with. Urban centres dealing with moving people in concentrated population areas. And it's a very complex planning environment that that regions are operating within. So in Metro Vancouver, TransLink, it has Transport 2040. This is the 30-year long-range plan of TransLink that has 10-year updates. And this slide is just meant to demonstrate how complicated it is in Metro Vancouver. On the left hand of the screen, you've got TransLink's governance structure, which involves multiple companies operating within a system with multiple layers of decision making between a board, a CEO, a mayor's caucus, a mayor's council. On the right hand of the screen, you've got the regional district, which has a regional growth strategy in a region that has it has a legislative authority over air quality, over water quality. It has no legislative authority over planning. So to come up with a regional growth strategy requires, cat herding 22 municipalities with various goals and aspirations to come up to a mutual agreement. And so TransLink is kind of operating this perfect storm of underfunding from the federal government, a complicated governance structure, operating within a region in an extremely complicated governance structure. Kudos to TransLink for getting anything done in some ways. So, but with Transport 2040, two things that I do want to focus on, which really immediately impacts on the work that we're doing. With Transport 2040, it has two main focuses. One is on economic issues, which is really about capital investments and land use so that densification and future transit investments are working in consort. And the other one is around health promotion at a very individual level. It has to do with choice riders, people that have a choice whether to drive their car or go on to transit. So trying to get people out of their cars, onto transit, mode share, because biking and walking is good for you. But it's at a very individual level. It's not looking at population health, it's not looking at poverty, and it's not looking at social sustainability. Calgary, and I'm sure Bonnie and Colleen can either correct me or amplify on this if you choose to. Within their transportation plan, they actually do incorporate the needs of low-income people. It's mentioned somewhere. Transit services should be provided to address mobility needs of persons with disabilities and low-income Calgarians who depend on public transit for their mobility. It's mentioned. And in our regional transportation plan, it's not. So in spite of this sort of lack of national coordination and any kind of national focus on social sustainability, there have been a number of programs that have emerged at the local level in Canada, which is, to me, looking at this quite closely, it really feels like there's a momentum behind the notion of the nature of poverty is changing, it's becoming broader, and transit is important, and access to transit is something that needs to be addressed. And so, again, this is just a slide to show you how complicated things are. Every region has a different program that focuses on different people with different qualifications, and some regions will have a budget limit and then have that many people allowed to apply, even though more might actually be qualified. Some will have a limit on this many people can apply, and then the rest will go on a waiting list. Calgary is different than that, which is why we invited them here, because from our perspective, what they've got going seems pretty good. Seattle as well. And so just very briefly in terms of the timeline. So it's not rocket science. We don't have to create anything on our own. There's programs out there that we can learn from and we can just implement, hopefully. 1997, Victoria, through the BC Transit Commission, they started a program which really dealt with emergency needs, not sort of ongoing needs that people have, where homeless service providers and other social service agencies were able to buy, they'd get a 50% discount on bulk ticket sales. So they would be able to get 2 tickets for buying 1, which they could give out to people for free that needed to get to medical appointments or whatever. Since then, mostly in Ontario and in Alberta, there's been programs that have focused on just straight low income, not looking at low income and senior, low income and disabled, just low income. And there's a number that came up in the mid-2000s. Recently, a couple of months ago, a month and a half ago, Edmonton City Council endorsed in principle a plan which would provide a, correct me if I'm wrong, 65% discount on the monthly pass for people in low income, and with an implementation probably around 2016. Toronto Council is looking at implementing a system hopefully by 2016. Calgary has had one in place since 2004. It just seems that we are behind the ball here and are playing catch up, but on the good side, there's lots to learn out there. And on that note, I will pass it on to Karen to talk about the local situation. And Karen is the retired executive director of the Lookout Society and also was on the Mayor's Council on Affordable Housing Task Force. Yeah.
Thank you, Peter. So I am going to cover the local situation, and specifically I'm going to zero in on the homeless and the homeless at risk, including talking about who they are and the numbers of people that we're talking about. I'm also going to be talking about their specific barriers and that have been identified by the Transit Working Group and the impacts that has had on them. So, as Peter said, Metro Vancouver is dealing with a very complex operating and governance structure. This constrains the ability of the many and various players to address issues, which is in itself a major barrier for creating a transit system that's affordable, available, and accessible to everyone. And I apologize for the busy screens, and in fact there's a lot of busy screens here. But this one particularly, and the next ones, help show some of the complexity. For instance, TransLink's responsibility includes both the capital and the operating costs of roads and bridges, as well as public transit, the trains, the buses, the C-Bus, Handy Dart, West Coast Express. However, TransLink is constrained by governing documents to a user pay system, and that's paid through fuel and property taxes. They are a provider of services, in other words, and they don't subsidize transit costs, and any subsidies that do come from the senior level of government, the province. Yet, it is the Mayor's Council that approves TransLink's long-term transportation strategies, and they're the ones who have the authority to change bylaws affecting how TransLink operates or delivers services. And towards the end of my, my little presentation, I'll get into that more. At the same time, you've got the 23 members Metro Vancouver determining the regional growth strategy that Peter referenced, and that includes a transit goal to expand both the bus and rail transit, and TransLink is responsible for planning and implementing that. To add to that complexity, the provincial government also has a plan that includes directions for Metro Vancouver on which TransLink also must act. And that's confusing, isn't it? Is that confusing? Okay. So the province does provide TransLink with capital funding for new capital projects, such as for bridge replacement or expanded lines, but that's up to 1/3 of the cost. But that's subject to provincial budget constraints. And the province is the only source of fare subsidy. And they only subsidize low-income disabled people and low-income seniors. Those are the only ones that are subsidized. TransLink, as Peter said, they're the ones that carry the responsibility for transit, and they do it through Transport 2040. And I'm not going to talk about the two major focuses, the economic and the environmental. But Transport 2040 does include a goal that's really interesting to the Transit Working Group. It is to achieve full accessibility of the transit system. So that's a stated goal. And as a society, we've done well to reduce many access barriers. For example, we've made building code changes for the mobility impaired. We built accessible apartments. We've worked on our sidewalks. We have fully accessible washrooms in all of our public spaces. So building form changes have occurred. We've installed bike lanes to increase viability for biking and require public transit to actually carry those bikes. So land use and operating practices have been changed to meet needs. Yet, people who are facing significant economic barriers, for example, those on income assistance or minimal wage jobs, or the absolute homeless, there's no consideration of their transit barriers, despite the fact that they generally have to rely on transit far more than in greater numbers than the rest of the population. And the cost of transit takes a significantly bigger bite out of their income than those with higher incomes. The availability also doesn't address late-night buses or the need of the service sector, and affordability is really limited to the tax considerations. But who are we talking about being affected the most anyway? So, who are the homeless? Who are the homeless? Well, they're like the rest of us. They're the young, they're the old, they're in any family grouping. They're from any color, many cultures, any gender. They're like the rest of us. Single men and women are the majority. The difference is affordability, right? Their income. Statistics from the Regional Steering Committee and the homeless counts. The homeless counts are done regionally every 3 years, the last in 2014, and the City of Vancouver does one annually. But the statistics of these homeless counts show that we have increasingly more homeless seniors and increasingly more homeless disabled people. And for a long time, of course, the mentally ill and the mentally disabled have been disproportionately represented amongst the homeless. The majority of the homeless are on low fixed incomes, but as you'll note from the slide, it's really interesting that 1 out of 10 people have zero income. Zero income. So how many are affected? Well, the homeless count, the last homeless count shows that we had just over 2,700 people that were in the streets during the 24-hour count. However, point-in-time counts are only for that 24-hour period, and they don't really represent the numbers of people who are going to experience homelessness over the course of a year. And that's been recognized in many jurisdictions. And so a U.S. Company actually developed a formula to apply to homeless counts that extrapolates the number of people who are expected to experience homelessness during the course of a year. And in that case, as you see, instead of 27 or just over 2,700 people on the streets, the expectation of the homeless in Metro Vancouver is closer to 6,000. And of course, it isn't just income or the lack of income that homeless people cope with, but they have health conditions, serious health conditions. This chart shows that 78% of the homeless reported having one or more health conditions, and almost half of them had 2 or more health conditions. And that gives some insight into why walking isn't necessarily an option for some of them, and why accessible transit is even more critical to their needs. The Transit Working Group did a survey in 2014. We interviewed 130 people, and they reported to us that transit is extremely important to them. I mean, 81% use transit to make it to medical or health appointments, to gain shelter access or get to housing, do employment and job search. More importantly, I think, that we also received the information that 41% of them, 41% of the people were unable to get to a shelter because there was no transit available to them sometime in the 12-month period. And a quarter of them were receiving those $173 fines for fare non-payment in the last 12 months. That's a lot of people, and not only, but people told us about getting multiple fines and increased penalties. And 82% said transit was important or extremely important to finding housing. And isn't that what it's all about? Isn't it about ending people's homelessness? They ought to be able to find housing. A shelter system can't work properly if people can't access housing. But it isn't just the homeless that are affected by the lack of affordable transit. It is people who are at high risk of homelessness as well, and for purposes of today, I've defined that as people who are paying more than 50% of their household income on rent or mortgages. So based on the 2011 census data, over 62,000 Metro Vancouver households were in core housing need and spent more than 50% of their income on shelter. And that includes 45% who were homeowners. That was a huge surprise to me. I don't know whether it's a surprise to you. And if you put the two numbers together with the 6,000 people who are the homeless and the high risk, you're talking about almost 70,000 people that are affected. To make matters worse, when fare savers are discontinued with the implementation of the Compass cards, soon to be, stored value on the cards is meant to take their place. However, stored value fares are $2.35, and that's a 12% increase for the user. And not only that, but Compass cards require a deposit of $6 to sit on those cards. And $6 doesn't sound like much, but if you're only receiving $610 a month and your rent is taking most of that, $6 is a lot of money. And what's happening is with the high cost of transit, some people living in extreme poverty are using the transit system without paying the fare, particularly SkyTrain. And these individuals are swept up with those who can afford the fares but aren't paying. And let's be really clear, those are two totally distinct groups of people. People who don't pay fares due to poverty are fearful of the impacts to them as they're forced to make choices that are untenable. Do I buy food or bus tickets? Fill a prescription or hope it goes away? And they're caught riding without paying, and when they're caught riding without paying, it's stigmatizing, it's shaming, and it makes an already critical lack of funds worse. As I said before, you get the fine, 173, you don't pay it, you get increased penalties for it, and that keeps going up, and the end result can be that you cannot renew your driver's license or renew your vehicle insurance unless you pay those fines off first. So that's not tenable for somebody who is if you don't pay the fines, when it comes time for you to renew your driver's license or your vehicle insurance, if you don't pay your fines, they won't renew your driver's license or your insurance.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's fine. So that just doesn't affect the individual, by the way. It affects the system. So it affects the other riders because now you've got transit police or transit security addressing them, and interrupts the flow of traffic. So all of this could be prevented if we had affordable fares, and it could reduce the cost of security to the system. And when TransLink fully implements the Faregate system on SkyTrain, without funds, people will not be able to access, they won't be able to get on the trains. And the result is more frustration. Those that are currently attending school, working, or trying to get to appointments will have even more difficult choices, either relegated to buses or making choices about skipping meals or paying utilities or staying home. And social isolation is a critical health concern, particularly amongst the seniors, according to the Fraser Health Authority. And that is expected to increase with the closing of the gates. It also means that some homeless people will be prevented from accessing shelters or getting from shelters to those critical appointments that I talked about earlier. And when shelter users can access the needed services, attend jobs, or find affordable housing, the shelter stays are kept short, creating turnover. And that means shelters can get more people off the street, and it also enables an expensive shelter system to work well. There are some bright notes, and I am wrapping up here. A few days ago, TransLink implemented the single zone fare system for all of Metro Vancouver bus travel and after-hours travel for SkyTrain and C-Bus, and that contributes in a huge way to the affordability, especially for those that are traveling 3 zones, which is double the cost of a single fare. But it does contribute to an already complex system that's, in my words, hodgepodge and not very seamless. And people living in poverty who need to travel more than one zone during the day are restricted by cost to the buses because they can't afford the more efficient trains. There is another positive note, however. The elimination of the tap-out system on the buses While it's an efficiency change for TransLink, it's very beneficial for anybody who's easily confused, frail, or cognitively impaired. So what's next? Well, you know, the Transit Working Group is extremely appreciative of TransLink, BC Housing, and the Transit Police working together with us for the purpose of developing a region-wide public transit access strategy for homeless individuals. Amongst our key guiding principles is a commitment to finding solutions, minimizing barriers, and giving people who are homeless the right to ride with dignity. These major changes that are being implemented by TransLink gives opportunity to revisit the fares and to design a transit system that truly meets the range of needs of the entire population of Metro Vancouver, and most especially the homeless, while better meeting their own corporate strategic goals. It also moves the dialogue forward, recognizing the economic barriers that homeless and homeless at-risk people experience in trying to meet their basic necessities. It has been successfully done in other cases, the mobility impaired that I mentioned earlier, but it also occurred for post-secondary students throughout BC. In that case, the province, TransLink, and universities, they recognized the needs of students and the cost factors that they were coping with, and also the benefit of reducing vehicle travel, and implemented the widely adopted and successful $38 a month U-Pass, or Universal Pass. Why not apply the same determination to make transit affordable for all? It simply takes political will. So what can you do? For one, it's endorsing the Transit Working Group goals. Another is, if you remember at the beginning of my presentation, I referenced the Mayor's Council and the Mayor's Council ability to change the governing documents for TransLink. So one of the things that you could do is, while TransLink doesn't have the authority to waive fines, the Mayor's Council can change the bylaws to enable TransLink to be able to waive those fines. So you can write the Mayor's Council and say to the Mayor's Council, hey, change the governing documents so that TransLink can waive the fines. And another action, I think this has to be a real public dialogue. We have to know what's happening. We have to understand the hardships that people are experiencing. We have to talk about that. And we have to take the lessons that we're going to hear from both Calgary and Kings County and bring those issues and the excitement, because I think you're going to be excited by what you're about to hear. Bring that forward to all of the discussions when Transport 2040 or any kind of transportation is being discussed at any table. So, in closing, I would repeat and stress that transit is really part of the solution to homelessness, and by enabling people to get to the critical appointments that they need to do and to get housing. So thank you. Well, it's my joy to introduce both Bonnie Picard and Colleen Houston, both co-chairs of Fair Fares Calgary. Oops. I don't know why. Aha! So Bonnie is the co-founder and co-chair of Fair Fares, and for 15 years, Fair Fares has advocated for a low-income transit pass in Calgary. Bonnie has served as the executive director on numerous nonprofit agencies, including the Canadian Alliance for Self-Determination, the Calgary Community Living Society, Parent-Child Centre, and Observation Nurseries of Calgary, Calgary Coordinating Care Society, and Parents' Place in Lethbridge. It's a lot of work, Bonnie. Bonnie was a government appointee to the first board of the Persons with Developmental Disabilities, the Calgary Region Community Board. Fair Affairs has received a Legacy of Social Justice Award from the University of Calgary Faculty of Social Work, and Fair Affairs has received a Community Spirit Award of Distinction for community collaboration. Bonnie received the Calgary Advisory Committee on Accessibility Awards for Committee on Accessibility Award for Advocacy. She's also the guardian of her sister Judy, who has Down syndrome, and Judy was the driving force behind the work that Bonnie has done over the years. Thanks for sharing that, Bonnie. Colleen has been the coordinator of Disability Action Hall for the past 15 years. She has been the co-chair of Fair Affairs for 15 years. Members of the Disability Action Hall continually ground and guide advocacy work with an understanding of nothing about us without us regarding social justice, basic needs, relationships, affordable access housing, accessible housing, adequate incomes, and services for all Albertans. Colleen is an artist, studied at the Alberta College of Art and Design, which was a surprise to me, and has received numerous awards, including the Community Collaboration Award to Disability Action Hall, Social Justice Encounter Legacy Award, the University of Calgary Faculty of Social Work, and the Lifetime Achievement Award for the Developmentally Disabled Resource Centre. She's also received the Diamond Jubilee Medal, the President's Award, which is issued by Alberta's Council of Disability Services, and the Mayoral, I don't know how to talk, Arts Award nominee for Colin Jackson and Arlene Strom. So I welcome both of you who will talk about Fair Affairs and Calgary. Thank you.
So good evening, I'm Colleen Houston.
And I'm Bonnie Picard.
And we're with Fair Affairs. And I love it, we got a little timer up here, so. Hello.
Is that better?
Thank you. All right. So, like we said, story is an incredibly powerful tool. And you just saw tonight the power of the Bus Riders Union, who, a few years ago rode the buses and talked to people about safety riding buses and the inability to get home safe from the night shift. And so they left a legacy of night owl bus service. And so we just saw one of those members left for a turkey dinner. But just such, lived experience is gold. And Lloyd, who's an active member of Disability Action Hall, said, that bus is my lifeline. And we're here just to talk to you about some facts about Calgary and some history of how we got started, where we are today, the lessons we've learned, the barriers we still have, and what worked. So Gracie Cito, she was another woman with a disability, and a transit customer said, that bus is going by, I might as well be on it. And that's definitely why we came to talk. 1 in 10 Calgarians lives in poverty, and 33% of Calgarians in poverty use Calgary Transit, very similar actually to what happens with Vancouver. Currently, a typical person who actually gets that bus pass uses it 3 to 4 times a week. And there are about 15,000 of a possible 55,000 Calgarians who could purchase the reduced transit fare. We believe a low-income transit pass is far too expensive for people in absolute poverty. Our recent survey in 2015 showed that people are staying home. They're not going anywhere. They're staring at 4 walls, or they're walking in really bad weather and putting their health at risk. There are actually 4,000 people using the Calgary shelters. We have actually a counting system now, and there's about 16,000 people at risk of losing their homes due to such issues such as domestic violence. We do have a free fare zone in Calgary, and that's known as the light or rapid transit, and so lots of people get to use that. That's really critical for people who need to apply for ID at Legal Aid Society, and maybe they'll go back to the library or to City Hall to go and apply at the fare entry counter. Just so you know that it costs about $1,400 in Alberta when a person ends up in jail and they can't pay their transit fines. So that costs between about $4.9 to $9.8 million for Alberta's taxpayers when people end up going into jail. So if you get caught riding transit and able to prove of payment, it costs $250 for your first offense. Your second offense is $500, and your third offense is $750. And there's a transit enforcement team that targets you on transit and IDs you to make sure that low-income transit pass matches your ID. So, lots of challenges.
Okay, so I'll talk to you a little bit about the history of the transit pass. In 1997, Calgary created what's called the PICS program. It's the Participation and Integration into Community program. It was an initiative to make free transit tickets available to people that were living in poverty. Beginning in 1997, they allocated 30,000 tickets annually to 27 agencies, and that program has grown over the years, and it now distributes 65,000 tickets to 80 agencies. The program is contracted by the City of Calgary to our drop-in centre. In 1973, the City of Calgary created a subsidy program for seniors because they were living in poverty at that time. The senior subsidies still exist today and haven't changed much over all those years. Seniors living on low income in Calgary, the Seniors Pass, they pay $1.25 a month. And their income is about the same as a person that receives the disability pension, called our AISH program. Seniors above LICO, up to even millionaire seniors, pay $7.90 a month. This has been an issue of fairness for people who are living below the age of 65 and pay $44 a month for a low-income transit pass. So that's always been an ongoing issue for us. In 2000, the Community Committee for Discounted Transit Passes was formed, and it's now called Fair Fares. Colleen and I are co-chairs, as was mentioned. We're a grassroots committee comprised of people living on low income, community organizers, and service providers. And we're not affiliated with any organization. And therefore, we can continue to advocate for affordable, accessible transportation for as long as we have over those 15 years. We also do not have any funding, so we can, again, be free to advocate and not fear that we're going to lose our funding. We were originally, when our Fair Fares first started, we addressed the issue of the Alberta Disability Pension not being able to purchase a transit, people living on the Alberta Disability Pension not being able to purchase a transit pass. After meeting for a few months, we quickly realized that the issue of unaffordability of the transit pass was not a program issue, but rather an income issue. It did not just affect people with disabilities or seniors or the homeless, and it did not just affect people who qualified for a specific program such as AISH. It also affected the working poor, who in our shelter, one of our drop-in centers, 50% of the people that live in the drop-in center work full-time. It also affected low-income students and the single mother with 2 kids. So we always say the face of poverty's changed, and it really has a lot of different people are living in poverty. It really came down to income. Just how much income a person had. We then began advocating for a discounted transit pass for all people living below 100% of LICO. In 2006, 2005 actually, the city created a pilot project for the low-income transit pass just for people living on AISH. And then in 2006, they broadened that to include all people living on low income below 75% of LICO. This was to keep the numbers down so that there wasn't that many people that they had to fund. One of the many advantages of the low-income transit pass is that a pass holder can also use the pass for Access Calgary, which is our para-transit system. When the low-income transit pass was first approved in 2006, the only way that a person could use that was to be able to show last year's income tax form, and people that were homeless, we said, did not keep their records in their shopping carts and most likely did not apply for, did not fill out their income tax. Now, we actually have 7 other proofs of income, including a letter from a social worker, if that person doesn't have any identification or other proofs of income. We're also successful in having the income cutoff raised to 100% of LICO. There's been many improvements to the administration of the low-income transit pass and the city subsidy program since it first began, and it's due in large part to the partnership between Fair Fares, Fair Calgary Community Voices, Fair Calgary, and Calgary Transit.
So we're actually, oh, yeah, go ahead.
Oh,
Low-income cutoff, and it's by Statistics Canada, and it's based on the size of the city. So for smaller towns, it's slightly lower, and it also helps for size of family as well. So ours actually looks at the family, and your subsidy increases the larger your family as well with our system.
it's the unofficial poverty line in Canada.
So that's about 24,000 in Calgary. And we actually are proposing in the sliding scale now to actually go up to 31,000, which is equivalent to a living wage. So I know we always forget. Thank you. So one of the things we're really proud of is a fair entry program. So not only when you apply for low-income transit pass, you can also get access to a swimming pool or $100 off for a program at the recreation centers. You can get your cat or dog spayed or neutered. You can apply for property tax assistance, and if you're a senior, you can apply for someone to come in and help fix your home, shovel your sidewalk. And so that's called single entry. And there's about in fair entry. So this is just Nahid Nenji just saying it's as a part of our work to transform government. One of our goals is to put the citizens at the center of our activities. And citizenship is at the core of this work. The Fair Entry Project is a great example of that. It not only preserves people's dignity, but it allows more people to access more city services. It typically took about 2 days to apply for a pass, whether you're a senior or someone living on low income. You had to take time off work. You have to go travel down to downtown. And it's not much better, but the single entries, and then you only have to apply once instead of 7 times for all those different types of subsidies that are offered by the city. And the fair entry agents can actually refer people to services that they might be in need of. So say they need to talk to someone in social housing, and well, they would actually then connect that person. So they're playing way major role. We're also really proud that the Calgary Public Library has now adopted the Enough for All strategy, and they're putting social workers into the libraries to help people apply for those applications. Literacy is huge. And those applications are on computers, and we are so computer savvy that we're forgetting it's really hard to actually access that information.
Okay, so this next slide talks about the sliding scale, and this graph shows a single person's income from different sources, including Alberta Works, which is the same as BC's Employment and Assistance Program. It also shows AISH, and it all the way up to 130% of the low-income cutoff, which is Alberta's living wage. So for many years, the low-income transit pass has been $44 a month, and this, as Colleen said, is unaffordable for a lot of people that live in poverty, especially those that live in extreme poverty. That's why Fair Fares is advocating for a sliding scale. We believe that this is a much fairer way to be able to offer subsidies. The sliding scale would match fares to an income more closely to a person's income. We're advocating for 4 bands of income, with the first band being 0 to 50% of LICO. And we're recommending that band be set at $5 per month. Then that would be 0 to 50% of LICO would be people that are, as I said, in the receiving Alberta Works. We're recommending that the second band be 50 to 85%, and that would be for people that 85% is where people are living on AISH, which is Alberta's disability pension. And then 85 to 100% would be, at this point, we're saying $40. And then we believe that poverty doesn't end at the poverty line. So we're recommending that the sliding scale go up to 130%, which is Alberta's living wage. So right now, the city is studying a sliding scale for 1 year, and they're going to be coming back to City Council, Calgary Transit is studying it along with Fair Calgary, and they're going to be coming back to City Council and with their findings to say whether or not they think that it's a good idea.
So as you see, that a centralized database is really critical, and having people actually understand poverty, have that access to that data is very important. A lot of our information used to be stored at transit, and they said, we are not in the business of poverty. We are in the business of moving buses. And we're like, well, actually, you're in the business of moving people. But let's get the experts who actually understand the root causes of poverty and look at through a lens of social determinants of health to actually help and treat people with respect applying for these services. So that was really critical. So Katie Black's been a champion for this, as long as literally hundreds of people that put together with this fair entry. And what is more important is that we are providing an excellent public service, benefiting all Calgarians and allowing people to become full participants in our communities. Partnership and collaboration is so important, and we could not have accomplished this project if we had tried to do this alone. So there are a lot of players, I'm sure, that the Transit Working Group can imagine can be at this table, and lots of ministries as well. So we have learned a lot of lessons. Again, not making subsidies program-based. They need to be income-based. There's actually a paper called on a social policy of Canadian alternatives, and just said that age-based discounts are not the fairest way to provide these subsidies, and income is more the appropriate way. The thing is that we still need a crisis response. You're still going to need the immediate way. Someone shows up at your door and they need a transit ticket now. You need that. You can't just have a low-income transit pass. You need both, and that we want to really emphasize that. It's exciting to hear advocating. The very first step is that crisis response, and we had that in 1997. And there's about 85,000 tickets now. But that's actually about one ride a month for the 4,000 people that just use our shelters, which is, it's not really serving that purpose, but
it helps.
It helps. Grassroots members can come and go and be flexible and welcome people. Understand that there are limitations to your partners. Like when you have United Way at the table, they probably can't speak out because of that, but they are very effective for us. They're very good at research and analysis and report writing and strategic for us, but they can't do that advocacy, and that's what our role is, and that's what people lived experience are, because you can show really cool studies and charts, but honestly that lived experience is what actually moves decision makers and takers. And it's when someone tells you the benefits of being mobile, and for the first time, Katie would say that she felt like a kid in a candy shop when she got her low-income transit pass, because on Access Calgary, spontaneity is not a reality. She said, I could go sailing, I can go to art classes, I can see my family, I can go to the doctor, and if I'm waiting at the office, I can just hop on the bus and go home. And she's a full-time quadriplegic.
When we present to City Council, which we do quite often, we can sit there and bring our charts and our conversations and all of our statistics. But the people we have a lot of people that come up to the microphone and speak to the City Council members about their lived experiences, Colleen says. And all of a sudden, the City Council members start to pay attention, they get interested in the story, and they get engaged, because these people are speaking from their heart, they're speaking from what they've already experienced, and it really, really moves decision makers.
Yeah. And so respect those people that experience with that. It's not really easy to put yourself up there and you're feeling like a poster child, and really honor that expertise. Because that is honestly, that's what has moved us along so far.
And we're speaking on behalf of them. It's better for them to speak on behalf of themselves a lot of the time.
Everyone, like, I've worked with people with disabilities all my life, and everybody has a voice, even if that person doesn't speak. There's just our role as to how do we help make that voice be heard, and that's just been really part of our work.
Yep, been powerful.
And again, we did mention there are some challenges. Again, we have an age-based legacy across Canada. You'll see that. There continually are discounts based on disability and seniors. Picture ID and little documentation to prove poverty always will be a challenge. Again, the low-income transit pass is not a crisis response. It takes time to apply. The eligibility criteria is still a struggle. And so having an appeal process that's responsive to that and making sure the administrators who are helping people process those forms has that power to actually address that barrier. This is a photo of a mother. Her son's 18. And there's a hyperlink in this presentation if you wanted to actually read her story, but she's just experiencing cancer and post-traumatic stress disorder, and she applied for a fee assistance card and was denied because she didn't have her son's income tax assessment form. Because you have to apply as a family for everybody in that one household. And so it's really important that the people that are filling out that form, they can quickly respond to weird glitches in that system and that power to help make that. Again, we have a very car-oriented culture, and a transit system does not reflect true migration. And fare prices and operating costs go up every year. And that is continually creates tension on how does transit respond to the needs of community when we grow and we don't have some sort of accountability to when developers build so far out and transit's just trying to get bus services to those extreme places. It's a real balancing act, and Calgary Transit's phenomenal, and I'm sure TransLink is quite responsive here. Anything else?
You wanted to talk about the appeal process?
Oh, I did.
You did.
We need one.
We need one.
Thank you. But I really just want to emphasize the power of story, and this is called Busting Bus Fares. I'll just show you a quick minute, but this is a group that from one of the poorer communities where one of the housing projects are, and you were at that meeting.
Yeah.
The youth organized that meeting.
Yeah, the youth, it was really exciting to see the youth get engaged, and up until a few years ago, youth between the ages of 7 and 18 years of age that were living on low income, all youth had to pay $64 a month. And so youth living in low income just couldn't afford it, especially youth that weren't living at home. Maybe they were living on the streets or in shelters. And so they organized them. There was some social workers that helped them to get organized. They started to have community meetings. They held forums. They created a petition, and they met with city council members. They also made presentations, as I was talking about, to city council standing policy committee, where they told stories of how difficult it is to get around our city without an affordable transit pass, and they were able to get the low-income transit pass included in, the youth living on low income included in the low-income transit pass. So that was a big victory for them.
Okay. I think it's going to work.
Transit in Calgary is expensive. It's $54.75 for youth, bus pass, low income, and normal. Why do I care? Because it affects me, my friends, and many other people in my community.
So, do I think that the cost of transit for youth is too expensive? Yes, I do, because we're youth and we don't really work. If there's like 2 youths in the family, it's kind of like very expensive to pay $54 times 2, you know?
How are you affected by the cost of transit?
Sometimes I would like miss on activities, and sometimes I would miss on school, so I have to stay home.
We are the Woodbridge Youth Action Group. We are a group of teens that recognize problems that we see need to be fixed, We want to be recognized as people who care about what affects our lives, community, and our world. We are here today because we want to change the cost of bus passes, especially for low-income youth.
We will be presenting the information and interviews that we collect tonight to City Council and hope that they will listen to us and lower the cost. We would like to see City Council make a low-income pass for youth or a low-income family pass. We all believe if you can't afford transit, then you should be able to have the option to have lower cost available to you.
And so my point is that if you want there to be a low-income pass for youth, there can be. You just need to work together and make sure you tell your aldermen and all of the aldermen and the mayor's office and the rest of Calgary why it's important.
Does being pregnant affect being able to walk anywhere? Do you have to take the bus?
I have to take bus. I have to take the transit. I'm high-risk pregnancy.
Okay, so you get the gist. And then I just wanted to read you one quick story, and then we'll just tell you what's worked. Okay. So we just, the story of Lucas. So, sure. Okay.
Talk. Okay, we're done. It's a lot of information to take in.
Sure, and it's going to be online, right? It's going to be on. Okay. No, that's right. Well, we're done. If that is that okay with everybody? We'll move on to the. Do you want or?
Yeah, I think I'm done. Actually,
Okay.
That was finished. That
Yeah.
was my end.
Okay,
the
thanks.
End of mine.
Tough crowd. Thank you very, very much. Our next speaker is Mark Konecki. Did I get it right? Who's the Project Program Manager, King County Metro Department of Transportation. Mark has worked at King County Metro Transit since 1999 and has served on Puget Sound Regional Council as a member of the Regional Reduced Fare Permit Task Force in support of the Americans with Disability Act since 2006. While employed as a customer service lead since 2000, Mark has supervised the employees selling Metro Transit products to the public and managed sales and tracking of the Human Services Reduced Fare Ticket Program, which serves the homeless and or low-income communities in the King County region. Mark has been managing the Orca Lift program since its launch in March 2015. The one regional card for all low-income fare transit, Orca Lift, is a reduced fare program that makes transit more affordable for those who meet the program's eligibility requirement, and that's a gross annual income of 200% below the federal poverty level. It's equal to ours, right? Reflective of ours. And prior to his tenure at King County, Mark owned and operated a successful restaurant in the Seattle area for over 21 years. I'm pleased to welcome Mark to share the information about King County. Very interesting.
Hi. Thanks for having me. Mark Konecki, King County Metro. I've been working on the Orca Lift program. I also work, most of the work that I do is working with the Regional Reduced Fare Permit, the senior and disabled population, and the homeless population. All right. King County is a beautiful area. It stretches from the Washington Cascade Mountains to the Puget Sound. It's the 13th largest county in the nation and is home to 2 million people, a very diverse community. It's home to Seattle and the Seahawks. It's also well known for the new economy companies like Microsoft and Amazon, which has made many people very prosperous in the Northwest. The average income, annual income of the top 20% of King County make over $250,000 a year. But our county is also a place of stark inequities. The large population is growing of people in poverty or near poverty. Nearly 500,000 people, 1/4 of the county's population, have an income less than 200% of the federal poverty level. In King County, government has made a strong commitment to make sure that everyone we serve, regardless of income, has the opportunity to succeed in life. We incorporate actions to promote social equity in everything that we do. You'll see this poster on the King County walls throughout the buildings. The tree represents the flourishment of community. All people have equal opportunity to thrive. The roots will determine the equity of where we want to what we want to nurture. Things like education, access to health care, and of course, transportation. The county's public transportation, King County Metro, is one of the 10 largest transit agencies in the nation. We offer close to 200 fixed routes, door-to-door service for people with disabilities, the largest publicly operated van pool program in the nation, the Human Service Ticket Book program, which serves the homeless population and the population with no income. The Human Service Ticket Book program is a program that the Metro subsidizes 80%. So agencies can purchase the tickets and they pay 20% and then they can give them to people in need. We have a growing array of alternative services tailored to our local community. Metro thrives to make public transportation accessible to everyone in the county. Identifying and meeting transportation needs of low-income and minority populations is an integral part of Metro's planning. Metro faced a big challenge in 2008 when the economy went into we called it the big recession, the Great Recession. Sales tax is where we get our tax base for transportation. And what had happened then is for 4 straight years, Metro had to raise its fares. And then again in 2015, we were talking about asking to raise our fares again. And our county exec had said that we couldn't raise the fares unless we did something to help the low-income population. So what did we do? We decided to put together a task force for the low-income fare. We got the low-income transit union users, the transit union. We got social service agencies and other people from the government to go over for the next several months recommendations to create a low-income fare. So in early 2014, our King County executive proposed the low-income fare to the King County Council, which was unanimously adopted. We set the fare at $1.50. It's for one zone all the time. The one zone and 2 zone surcharges on the full fare adult fares doesn't come into play for it. It maintained the reduced fare ticket program, so that the agencies could still purchase the tickets at the 80% discount. It would make it the fare is available to the households with less than 200% of the federal poverty level. In the end, we had to introduce this low-income fare at the same time in March that we were going to raise the fares. So we didn't have a lot of time to put this together. So we were pleased that we were going to be able to offer this reduced fare. We had a lot of questions. How are we going to make this fare available? How are we going to determine who is eligible? How are we going to enroll them in this program? What's the best way that we could market the program, especially in a county where English is not always the language that the population is speaking? For a transit agency that is not delivering social services, these answers weren't always obvious. The answer to these questions weren't always obvious to us. Fortunately, our task force came up with some practical solutions. One of them was that the fare would be on our Orca card, which is the card that we have that works on 7 transit agencies in the Puget Sound region. The Orca card, the low-income card, would look just like the standard Orca card, so that we would avoid any stigma that would be with the low income. We also decided there'd be no fee for the card to obtain the card, and the card would be valid for 24 months before you need to reapply for the program. The task force also wanted us to come up with a short and memorable and affirmative name for the program. This was easier said than done. We had a lot of people with a lot of names for the program. One of the big parts is that we wanted a name of the program that didn't say it was low income, and so we ended up with LIFT. That it's a lift up, and it's been accepted very well. And then also the task force said to minimize the burden on Metro, King County Metro, that it should rely on a third-party agency to do the verification and distribution of the cards. This was a great idea, but it was a huge task that we weren't qualified to do. But the pivotal part was, and the planning came when we realized that the solution was in our own backyard. It was our King County Public Health. We partnered with King County Public Health of Seattle and King County, who has a long history of conducting outreaches and helping people enroll in various programs. They have an established wide network of outreach locations and strong relationships with agencies, and an expertise in communicating with the targeting audiences. And also they had just finished enrolling over 200,000 people in for the Affordable Care Act. And it was critically important because they had the technical ability to verify income. Because when they're enrolling the people in the Affordable Care Act, we were able to, they see their income when they're enrolling them. And if they don't have an income, they have the ability to go to the state to see if they filed, and if they haven't filed, then they can see that they don't have an income. And they were also able to, once they've been enrolled in the program, be able to issue them the card on the spot. So Metro, we formed the partnership with Public Health, and it made the Orca Lift program an absolute success. Public Health had their did their enrollment outreaches at food banks, community colleges, shopping malls, and other locations. Metro also is contracted with 8 other agencies to help enroll individuals into the Orca Lift program, and Public Health oversees their work. By having this partnership, this avoids us duplicating enrollment and the verification process. It's making it easy to get OrcaLift cards into everyone's hands, and it also makes a one-stop shopping for the individuals coming in, because they can be coming in for an OrcaLift card, but they also might need health care, or they might need help for food or education. So we can help them get enrolled into other programs at the same time. It's kind of this one-stop shopping. Another key to the successful launch was our marketing and promotion. We did a soft rollout prior to March 1st, of 2015, because at the time, we were looking at 325,000 people who were qualified who could come in to get this card. And we weren't quite ready for that amount of people. So we kind of did it quiet, kind of quiet, and worked with agencies to get people started. And then once it got going, then we went in with the marketing to look at the areas on where we were doing the enrollments and where we were falling short. And then we did some targeting of mail postcards and targeting the audience to try to get them to come in and get their card. The materials are in a wide variety of formats and languages. And then throughout the summer, Public Health has conducted outreaches and festivals at festivals, parades, employment sites, senior centers, senior citizen centers, and community centers. They've also partnered with our Metro Orca to Go van. The van, when it can go out, the staff can issue OrcaLift cards. It can also issue the senior or disabled cards, standard OR cards, youth cards. They can add value, and people can walk away with their cards at the same time. So what are the results of our efforts? As you can see, it has a steady growth of people joining the program. And they're using them. On the boardings, this doesn't have September, but in September we had over 310,000 boardings on the OrcaLift program. And people are satisfied with the program and how it works and the verification process. We've had very few complaints. The program has received lots of positive media coverage across the United States and even international, because I'm here. And it was in London too. Many transit agencies have looked at Metro as a model, and we're glad to share information about the OrcaLift program today or at any time. You can you can go to Metro online and look at the program, or you can also contact me if you have any questions. And I'll be here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I was awaiting your permission to proceed. Upis Hattini, father of Sablefish, Raven Tribe, expressing appreciation for the respectful acknowledgement of these wondrous ancestral lands. Beginning by expressing a bit of sympathetic appreciation to the, I'll use this phrase, exasperated gentleman. In my opinion, one of the most serious mistakes over and over and over again, which I experience at events like this, is that there's presentation after presentation after presentation before there's any permission given whatsoever for audience participation. It's a far better strategy and tactic, in my opinion, to have a presentation and then allow a short segment of audience participation, announce what the time limit is, and stick to it. You do eventually get to, shall we say, information overload. So that's my rant. Now my question is primarily to the Alberta ladies, and the question generically is with regard to relationship or lack thereof. And the question has two parts. One part is an Aboriginal part, and the second part is vis-a-vis the provincial iteration of the Crown in Alberta. If I'm not mistaken, Calgary has 2 or more Aboriginal communities which are immediately physically adjacent. So in the Aboriginal area, do you Calgary ladies have any relationships with Aboriginal people, Aboriginal communities, urban Aboriginal people, and do you recognize Aboriginal government as a form of, as an order of government, just as valid as any other? And then with regard to the provincial iteration of the Crown in Alberta, how do you see, perhaps under the present administration and or the previous provincial administration, how do you see relationship between the provincial iteration of the Crown in Alberta and municipalities such as yours? Thank you.
Hi, thanks for your question. So I don't think we have a great relationship with the First Nations and Métis populations. There's 500 people of Indigenous population that walk through the Calgary Public Library doors every day, and they're in crisis. And if we don't address this population and not work and not follow that wisdom of people and create safe spaces, and that's the intention of that library hub model. So we can do this way better. We can't do it alone, and we have Enough for All strategy, and we have some people from Treaty 7 guiding that. And we are working on the work of Genevieve Fox, who created that strategy. At the core of that is healing, and it's pride. And it's quite the parallels between the marginalization and the second-class citizenship people have with disabilities and no struggles are parallel. And there's 48,000 children in foster care. That's 3 times the amount of the residential school systems. And we're repeating this cycle. So I love to say I have a great response, but I don't. And we need to do this together. Okay, so just to clarify, so do you mean with the so there's with the First Nations and Métis population, there has actually been an advisory appointed by Jim Prentice, if that's what you're asking about. And if you're talking about our relationship around public transportation, we've again with the new government, it's not great. They're just trying to figure out where their offices are. So. They have a transportation strategy. We have a great financial minister, Joe Ceci, who's part of the Alberta Coalition to End Poverty, who is part of the Vibrant Communities Calgary, who helped lead targeting people pawn shops. He's our finance minister, and he's been a leader. And he was one of the city councillors that worked with us on our committee. And so I have hope that we'll have a good relationship with the province. And we've submitted a provincial strategy around affordable transportation to that, but again, they only see that as their capital requirements and not the operating. And so really we need a cost-shared solution across all 3 levels of government around capital and operating. And I think TransLink is willing here and listening, and I don't think they can do it alone. And really it's nothing about us without us. That's all I can say.
Hi. The fare busting kids, what did they achieve in the end?
They were able to get youth between the ages of 7 and 18 years of age included in the low-income transit pass. So up until that point, all youth had to pay, at that time it was $57 a month, while the low-income transit pass was $44. So their work was to get the youth included in the low-income transit pass, and they accomplished that.
For the King County Metro gentleman, you said when Metro was going to raise fares, the King County exec insisted you have low-income fares. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. They that in order to raise he felt that he couldn't go to the public and say and agree that we would be able to raise the fare because it was just creating a further inequity between the low income and the higher income, and so he would agree to allowing us to raise the fare, but only if we put in place a low income. And it was not that we didn't already have, we have a reduced fare for senior and disabled. So this was also to be included with that. So it wasn't, we couldn't say that we already have this in place.
So the King County exec was the governance body for Metro?
Yeah, he's like he's like the city, he's like the mayor. But and the county is over multiple cities. Like he's over the Seattle, and there's Bothell, Woodinville. All the cities that are around Seattle also.
Thank you.
I was just thinking about some of the points you were making about age-related discounts and how they are becoming less and less relevant to the actual circumstances that people are living in. And I suddenly remembered that when I was growing up in Montreal and attending high school, I was granted a free bus pass. This was a program that was a combination of the school board and the transit authority because I lived more than 2 kilometers away from my school. It had nothing to do with, and I was enrolled, that was a criteria. You had to be enrolled in school and live more than 2 kilometers away from your school, and you got a free pass that was valid from September through August. And then every September through your school, you re-enrolled, and it was great. And again, that's about circumstances rather than age.
Yes. Can you tell me why the change was made for the traffic, for the transit system this October? Why was it done? Was there a good reason to change people's lifestyles and everything else? Thank you.
You're asking why October 5th going to one fare and treating people like second-class citizens on buses and not able to ride SkyTrain? Is that what you're saying? Why the change?
First, would you slow down? Would you slow down a bit because it's sometimes very difficult to follow. What I'm asking is that there was a change. Why?
I'm not part of that, but I'm also a little confused because I don't know what the change. What change did you see?
All of Vancouver knows what the changes are, so I'm surprised you say that.
Well, I'm not from Vancouver,
Well,
so that's why
I wasn't particularly asking yourself.
Right, but I'm just saying I was.
There are some people on this, whatever you call your group,
I can answer the question.
Who should know somehow why they made the change.
Okay.
Hello?
So,
I can answer the question for you.
Oh, Norm, I'll try it to start if you want to follow up maybe.
Well, go ahead then.
Okay. So is the change that you're talking about that the buses became one zone and the rest of the system remained the same? Is that what you're talking about?
That's a major part of it. Can you give me a reason why the population was put through all this? I mean, there was no reason that I could see. All I saw was a notice on the buses and the trains that said, hey, this is going to happen. Where do they get the authority to take $6 from me? $6 for me, because I don't make any money at all. I'm a senior. I'm 80 years old. I cannot get work. They ask me for the same amount of money as they do everybody who has employment. If you take that $6 and rate it with what I can afford, the same thing is being given to somebody who makes $50,000. I make maybe 12. For me, to pay that $6, it adds up to about 35 to 40 or maybe $50 to me. To them, it means nothing. To everybody else in this room, it means nothing. But to me, I am paying 6 times more. I'm sorry, dozens of times more for the same privilege to give them $6. Everybody else can say, well, it's only $6. For me, that's about $100. Why was the change made? What justifies it?
Maybe.
I mean, the $6 that you're talking about, I think, is a $6 deposit on the Compass card, and that's real, and that would be TransLink's decision. That has that's a decision that TransLink made. They have the legal. They set their own fares.
They're the operators, and I just want to point out that the $6 is a deposit that you can actually get refunded, right? And I think your point is about equal, equitable payment of, and it's a very good point, sir. As for the specific answer to your question, maybe what I can do is see you after the session. I can get your contact information. I can find out the answer to the question for you and come to you to give you the answer, because we don't have the answer here. There's nobody from TransLink on this table.
Well, I mean, we don't think there should be a $6 deposit on the card. So to ask us to explain why it is, you're asking someone that already agrees with you. Yeah, well, just as an example, though, like on this point, and the part of the purpose of this panel is, like on this specific issue, when it came up in Seattle, what they did was they have a $5 deposit on the card, where we have that $6 deposit that you were talking about. But when it came to the low income fare, they made a decision to waive the $5 fee, so that people that are qualifying for the low income transit pass don't pay that $5 deposit, whereas the regular transit pass user would. So that's something for us to learn about for any like future improvements to the system.
Stands up there with all these people who are selling their underwear, trying to get $5 to get a pass.
Sir, I think you're preaching to the choir.
So there's a few more people that have questions. So can we move on to that, please? We're running out of time, and we really would like to get as many questions in. Thank you.
My question's really quick and short. I work as a community advocate actually in the very neighborhood where Collingwood Neighbourhood house is on 41st Avenue between Victoria and Knight Street. And the whole Compass card thing and how to supply tickets to our really low-income clients, we had to actually stop as a church agency providing this service back in about 2009 because we could no longer afford. We had to choose between providing food to the poor and providing transit. We couldn't afford to provide both. And my understanding is these cards that are going to be offered to agencies, they have to be bulk purchased, which would again be beyond the means of our church. We could afford the occasional card, but I've heard that you'd have to buy as many as 50 or 100 at a time, and that they expire after 6 months.
The Compass card is a $6 refundable deposit, but the bulk buying of what is Fare Savers right now, but will be Compass tickets. There is no deposit required for that. There is a minimum bulk order, I believe, of 50, but it's right. Not. Right, and I'd be pleased to talk to you about, because there is a way, and I can talk to you about that after.
I think we have another question here.
I would like to say thanks for coming to speak to us. I thought it was very interesting. My question is about the stigma of actually applying for any of such programs. What have, in both the Seattle, in the King County case and the Calgary case, what have you guys done to be able to minimize the amount of stigma that people would feel in applying for such programs?
Well, for King County, what we've done is we had partnered with public health to do the verification. So they're going to look at services, and when they bring in their documentation of what they to prove their income, a lot of times they don't even need to, because as long as they have their identification, the public health can pull up their information and verify their income. And then the card that they're issued looks like any other card. There's nothing that shows that it's a low-income card. It's kind of like we wanted to avoid where we used to have people who needed food, just basic food. We would give them, the food stamps. So they had to go to the grocery store and pay with these food stamps so that when they pull them out, everybody could see that they needed help. And we're trying to get away from that. And so once to get food, we don't have the food. We still give basic food help, but it goes on a credit card. So you just go in and it looks like anybody else's credit card and then pays for your food. And we're really trying not to single anybody out.
So that means in your situation, people who would be applying would already know that they fit the criteria?
Yes, for the most part. Sometimes they don't. I mean, sometimes you have, because what we're running into right now is a lot of the schools, some schools like the University of Washington, which is a very large school, provides transportation for all their students, whether they want it or not. And it comes out of their tuition. Some of the other schools who don't provide it, the students, when they'll come in to apply for the program, and they assume that because they're a student, they qualify. And being a student doesn't qualify you, but if you don't have an income, then you would qualify. So, and it's not just your household income. I mean, there is a household income, but you're not living with your parents. You're living at either on campus. But if you're not living on campus and you're working, you may be over the amount. But we try.
So for Calgary, I wish we had the approach that the Orca had at going to the malls and being that accessible. Like, we just sat in awe just around that dignity. We've just fought just to try and make the paper passes look almost identical, and we wanted them, but transit said no, there's just a little C on that. So that's when we flash the transit people, they know you're low income. So, but you have to, it's still very stigmatizing, and so I really like what Orca card people are doing, and I think that's a better approach. I mean, you can ask for a letter from a social worker, and because I'm on the belief, like, if you're asking for some help, I think that's probably good enough. And I think that's all you kind of need. It's really, really hard to ask for help. I've lived in poverty, and I think people just should self-identify personally.
And so in both situations, you have to go through various social work and public health agencies, and that's the only way to get the sort of just kind of fair.
For us, it is. We had to come up with something for verification, but on the public health, it's not that you just have to go to that site. They have sites throughout the county, and we also do, we call them mobile events, but we go out into different communities, to different schools, we're also working like with businesses, small businesses, and they verify their employees' income. And so we can go in, we can get issued the cards to their employees. And they may not be able to give them transportation, a benefit for transportation, but they can at least get them help them get the card so they can cut their transportation in half.
In Calgary, we have program guides that are available at all the swimming pools. So you can go and apply for these subsidies at your swimming pool. That's kind of nice. You can apply online. You can mail it in. You know, you don't have to like totally reduce yourself having to sit in front of another person too. So, but that's all online. You know, like, but it helps when you have a mailing address to apply for that. But it's possible.
Yeah, I've got a question. I guess I'm going to address this to Mark, because you've got a similar card system, Orca card, Compass card. I don't know whether it's the same provider, but a similar thing we've got here. So my question is, did you consider, because you're doing a per fare, per ride cost, which is going to be good for people who don't ride that much. And Calgary did a system where it's per month, which is going to be very good for people who ride a lot. But, there's going to be people who it doesn't work so well for. So did you consider going to a system where there would be a monthly cap, so that if you do more than a number of rides, that it's capped? And is that something that we should be looking at here in Metro Vancouver when we get our even better program with low-income fares?
Yes, it actually is a good question. We do have a monthly pass that's available also. So but not everybody rides all the time. And so if you don't ride 18 round trips in a month, you're better off just paying per trip. And then you get a 2-hour transfer with each time when you use the card.
But low-income people don't know how much work they're going to get per month.
Right.
So
And
do you have to decide at the beginning of the month or the beginning of the year, or does it just cap?
well, you have until the 15th of the month to purchase a monthly pass. We usually tell people to put the money on a purse first, and that way they can, unless they know they're going to ride every day. Because even if you're a regular commuter like I am, and if you were to buy a monthly pass, and I know I'm going to be on vacation for a week, I'm better off paying each day rather than buy that monthly pass. But we tell them to people to look at to start with a purse, see what your riding pattern is, and then decide whether a pass is going to work for you or not, and then purchase the pass. We also, when we set this program up, it was a complicated program, and to get it into our system also. So when and the low income reduced fare is only valid on our King County Metro buses that we're running. But we also have, in the Orca system, there's 6 transit agencies that are using the same card. We set this up so that if they decide to offer a low-income fare, they can just turn on that fare on their fare set, and they don't have to go through the same process of developing it for us. So we were looking at it more of a regional thing as we were trying to do it. So.
We're after 9 o'clock, and we're supposed to be out of here at 9. It's almost 10 after. I've received 3 written questions. Is it okay if we go through the written questions and very quickly answer, and then do the final wrap-up? All righty. Thank you. So the first question is, why does Vancouver want to hold the forum? Why Vancouver wants to learn from Calgary and Seattle? Is Vancouver proposing the similar plan? You want to answer that, Peter, or you want me?
No, Vancouver isn't, and the purpose is to encourage the development of a plan here.
We want to learn. The reason that we held this forum is because we want people to understand the challenges and the barriers, and we want to learn from other places. And both Calgary and King County have some great ideas that we think are worth exploring. So that's the reason for the forum. Second question is, does the city have plans for the extreme poor people does the city have plans for the extreme poor people after the SkyTrain entrance doors are fully implemented? As you mentioned, that 10% of the homeless people have 0 income. So does the city have any plans? The city doesn't deal with, well, I was going to say they don't deal with transit. I mean, this is part of the complexity of the TransLink system and the Mayor's Council and Metro Vancouver and so on. But what has happened is TransLink has implemented this one-zone fare on buses. And that one-zone fare on the bus means that once the gates are closed and people cannot use the trains because they have no income, they still have access to the buses, and they have access to the buses for a reduced cost. They don't have to pay 2-zone fare or 3-zone fares. You know, I guess that's one of the challenges. I would say to you that one of the reasons that we have the regional planning committee together is to talk about these issues and identify the issues and try and strategize how we can reduce the negative impacts of some of the changes that are going on.
I mean, that's why I got involved in this about 2 years ago when the fare gates started coming on. I mean, we had an informal system where people are sneaking on the train, and if you bring in fare gates, then there needs to be a formal way to get people on the train and past those fare gates. I mean, that's whoever asked this question. I mean, that's why I became involved and interested in this.
We are talking access to shelter and critical services, so absolutely. The third question is, what is the biggest effect on Calgary and the homeless people? Oops. What are the biggest effects on Calgary and the homeless people after adopting the FARE plan? What was the biggest effect on the Calgary homeless people after adopting the FARE plan?
I think one of the things that when the low-income transit pass came in, it came in at $44 for everybody, regardless of your income. So if you had zero income, or if you had income up to $24,000 a year, you all paid the same. So, so really, people that were living in extreme poverty, it didn't affect them at all because they couldn't afford the $44. So they had to continue. They have to continue to buy single ride tickets at $3.50 each at this point, and so that's why Fairfares is recommending and working with City Council to get a sliding fee scale, so that the fares are targeted or geared to your income. So if you have zero to up to about $700 a month, we're recommending that people that are living between those amounts of money pay $5 a month, which is more realistic, geared to that level of income. So there was no impact really when the low-income transit pass first came in, because people couldn't afford it, and we are continually told by the homeless shelters, the shelters that people that are homeless cannot afford the $44. So it doesn't help them at all.
They've just said it should be free. Yeah, London's one of them, but again, yeah, and there's Grand Prairie and Banff, and it's exciting, and I really wish we had free transit. So, yeah. It would be a 1%. Yeah, it would be 1% property tax increase across for Calgary to actually provide free transit. It's nothing. We have the lowest property tax in Canada. We could do it.
And on that note, we're going to wrap up. Thank you very much, everybody, for attending. I want to especially say thank you again to Colleen, Bonnie, Mark, Peter for your presentations, and what we're going to do to acknowledge their contribution for tonight is we're going to be buying a bunch of Fare Saver tickets and distributing them on their behalf. So thank you very much from the Transit Working Group. I want to also again thank our volunteers, Am Johal and Andrea Kramer, Hendrik, Bune, there you are, for going out and doing a bunch of work. Pastor Norman Oldham down at the back, who's manning the table. Wanda Mulholland, who's been extraordinary in all of this. So I'm hoping that I didn't leave anybody out. So again, my thanks to everybody, and please, as you walk out the door, talk it up, think about it, talk to people about the issues of affordable transit, and maybe we'll be able to get to the point of adopting some of the ideas that you've heard here tonight, or ideas that are still out there. Thank you.